G'day guys, here we have a 2005 Subaru Outback and it's got the EZ30R engine in it, which is the 6-cylinder 3 litre, and we're going to make this run standalone to go in a Volkswagen. And yeah, just going to do this video for you to show what you need to grab from the donor car. So in the engine bay, we've got the mass airflow sensor, so you definitely need this. You've got the engine, you've got the alternator harness here, which you want to grab as well. And it terminates into the fuse box, so you don't actually really need the fuse box. There's hardly anything in there that's engine related apart from the radiator fan relays, so just disconnect it down here. And the other thing we need to grab out of the engine bay is this fuel pressure regulator. So on the early EJs, the fuel pressure regulator was actually on the engine, sort of down here. In this, it's still in the engine bay, but it's sort of separate. So yeah, grab this fuel pressure regulator. And because this is a 6-cylinder, it runs a variable speed radiator fan controller, which is actually on the radiator. So this has had a front impact here, so it's the radiator sort of pushed in a little bit. It's actually damaged the radiator fans, but luckily this controller is still good. So this is good to run as well, because yeah, when it's only at low temps, it'll run the fans at fairly low speed, so draw low current and less noise. Only the 6-cylinders seem to have the variable speed fan controller in, so you can disable it with our interface box. You can get rid of that if you want, but I would advise to keep it in. It's a good thing, especially if you've got the donor car and you've got it there. You don't have to use those fans. Use aftermarket fans and just rewire them. So, but yeah, I'll give you a look inside. So we've stripped this car a little bit already, sold a bit of interior, the seats and steering wheel and whatnot. So it still starts and runs. So I'll give you a look. So it runs quite nice. It's done a few kilometres, just over 200,000, which is about average, I guess, for this year. And yeah, so being a 2005 model, it is CAN bus, and they've got the Immobilizer system. So you need to grab the key. Need to grab the key antenna, which is this little bit that's actually glowing, so it reads the chip in the key. And the Immobilizer box is actually under the steering column, if you can see that. Yeah, that's it there. So it's got 3 plugs in it, fair bunch of wires, but you know, actually have to hook 10 of them up to get it to work. And also need the cluster as well, because the cluster's got some Immobilizer codes, but we also provide a cluster delete module. But you do need the initial cluster to grab the codes from. So this is the little screw just there. So undo that screw and the cluster will come out. And over the other side of the car, on the passenger side, we've got the engine computer, so definitely need that. And yeah, the harness runs up here, runs all under the air conditioning unit behind the dash. So our next job is to remove the dash panel. This has seen better days. It's all cracked, which is a common issue with this model, especially in the Australian heat. It just yeah, cracks with age and heat. But yeah, we'll get rid of this. It's pretty simple, really. There's just a few screws here and there. That'll get this middle section out. There's a few screws on the side, and we'll also need to remove the bar and the steering column as well. So there's a few bolts up here to do that. And so that's about it for the front. And because this is a 6-cylinder as well, the other thing, like the turbo, is it runs a variable fuel pump controller. So that is located in the back. So I've taken all the trim out, and there it is there. It's a silver box with about 8 wires going to it. So yeah, grab that out as well, and grab a bit of length of wire, and that will control the fuel pump. So yeah, I'll next step, I'll remove this dash panel and give you a look behind the dash panel, and we'll remove the harness. Okay, we've removed a lot of the trim from the dashboard now. All the glove box is gone. And I'll just show you a few things that will trap a lot of people. So on this model, the dashboard has its own harness, which is called the instrumentation harness. And this is the instrumentation harness here, and that's the body harness on the other side. So this instrumentation harness goes up the back of the dash, which you can't really get to unless the dash is out. So what you need to do is just disconnect it, and then it'll all come out with the whole panel. So that's one connector there. There's also a connector in the driver's side, which I'll show you shortly. And then after that, it's basically these big bolts here on the side, on the A pillar, and there's a couple in the middle. The center console, one on each side, and that should lift off. There's also the airbag, passenger airbag here. It will come out with the dash panel, but we'll just have to disconnect it or chop the wires, because it's actually connected to the body loom, which will stay on in the car in the body. So yeah, I'll just chop that off. I've disconnected the battery too, by the way. You don't want to go chopping airbag plugs with the battery still connected, so just a word of warning. So I'll go to the other side and show you the other side, and then we'll take the dash panel out. So here we are on the driver's side. We've got the fuse box, taken a couple of bolts out there already. So the fuse box is actually mounted to this bar. So this bar is going to come out with the whole dash panel as well. This aluminium bar, which runs to the other side. So the fuse box is mainly connected to the body side, so we want to keep that in the car. So we want to unclip it from the aluminium bar. So I've done that. I'll unclip this one, and then yeah, just these two bolts here. And there's this wire here on the top of the fuse box is actually the dash harness power supply. So we'll unplug this top one, as that harness is part of the dash harness, which will come out with this whole panel. And the other thing I'll mention as well, the back to the body computer, this blue plug here. So there's 3 plugs, 2 are the body side, so we can leave them in for now. We want to take the instrumentation or the dash harness out, which is that one. So this one runs up behind the dash, so we don't want to go pulling the dash out and have that still connected. So and finally, there's 2 14mm bolts that bolt the steering column to this metal bar. So because this metal bar is going to come out with the dash panel, we don't want to take the steering column out just yet, so we'll just disconnect it, and it'll lower it out the way, and yeah, the panel should come out with the cluster as well, and then we'll take the cluster out while the dash panel's out. Okay, so this dash panel is just about all out. It's just sitting in there at the moment. So I'm just checking, there's nothing, there's a couple of plugs I didn't tell you about. These 2 here, so that's it's connected to the back of this aluminium bar, and they connect just into the body harness, just in there at the A pillar as well. So as well as you got the fuse box, you've got a couple of connectors in the A pillar, and there's just a few other body looms that were tied onto the bar as well. So this one here, which went to the steering column, so I've just snapped that off. I've lowered the steering column, so it's all quite loose now. The bolts are out down in the middle. And I did say 14mm bolts before, but they're actually 12mm, so sorry about that. And yeah, so we'll lift this out now. We've made sure there's nothing else connected, and we'll lift it out and show you what's behind. So this is the dash panel removed out of the car, and I'll give you a bit of a look what I was on about before. So that's that big aluminium bar, so it's coming out with the panel. You can get the panel off without the bar, but you know, there's all these little screws in everywhere. It's easy to just take the whole bar and harness out in one go, like we've done here. So yeah, these are the ones that went into the A-pillar, into the body loom. One's actually for the door, so the power windows and door speakers and locks and whatnot. And that's actually the one for the rear door, so that's the front door, rear door. Same on this side. And yeah, that one went in the fuse box, and these ones went to the illumination control and dimmer switches and whatnot. So yeah, we'll just take this harness off here. You don't actually really need anything too much out of this harness, apart from getting the dash cluster to work, because we do that for the immobilizer. Or if you do the immobilizer delete, don't really need any of it at all. So yeah, if you want to use the dash cluster in your swap, then yeah, get this harness out here and strip all the wires out that run the cluster. So we'll have a look back in the car, and that's it with the dash removed. And yeah, steering column's just sort of sitting there. And this is the main body harness here, so this is the one we want to remove. And the problem is it's still behind this heater box, so next job is we've got to remove this heater box, which means taking the coolant out, and also make sure there's no gas in the air conditioning system. I think this one's had the front collision and it's lost the gas already, so that's a bit of a bonus. And on the passenger side, this is the gearbox, 5-speed gearbox controller. So yeah, if you're going to use the Subaru 5-speed or 4-speed, you want to grab this box as well, along with the harness. And if you want to use the shifter, you want to make sure you keep all this wiring here to the shifter control, and so it's got the tap up and down as well, which is quite good on this model. But yeah, all this yellow wire here is all for the airbag. So in order to remove the air conditioning heater boxes, we need to disconnect the coolant lines that go through the firewall. So we've taken the two heater hoses off, and we've undone the retaining bolt off the air conditioning lines, and we've also checked both Schrader valves, that there's no definitely no pressure in this. So what I'll do is I'll just pull that out carefully, and once we do that, we can start removing the air conditioning boxes. So now the air conditioning line's removed, and we go about removing the air conditioning boxes. So you got the air conditioning box here, and there's just a load of nuts and bolts on each end, and also on the floor. And then you've got the fan housing as well, which again, just a load of nuts and bolts, and a few electrical connectors for the climate control. So yeah, I'll disconnect all the connectors, undo the bolts, and they should pull straight out now that it's disconnected from the engine. Alright, so now with the heater box and air conditioning fan unit removed, you can see the main body loom a bit clearer. So yeah, that's the main bit there behind the boxes, and yeah, that's why I need to remove the dash and the air conditioning to get it out, which is yeah, a bit of a pain, but anyway. So the harness on this side goes through the firewall at the front, so this is the driver's side, and it goes to the ABS unit. So you actually don't need any of that wire, so where I've got my hand there, you can actually chop that where it goes into the front firewall. And yeah, the other side of the loom here just goes down to you know, the back of the fuse box, so you don't need to use the fuse box, so just basically unplug all the plugs off there. Same with this relay block. None of these relays are actually engine related, but yeah, just might as well just keep it on the loom if you're sending the loom to us. And yeah, so this all just unclips. A couple of bolts there. You got the two on the body control module. So you want to keep the body control module, so I would just unscrew it off the column. And these are going to the ignition barrel. You don't really need the ignition barrel wires, but you do need the one that goes to the key antenna, which is on this side. So it's a little 2-pin plug just here. So you do need that, and do need to take the key barrel and the reader out with the key. And then yeah, over this side on the passenger side, so if this is American or left-hand drive, basically this is going to be a reversal of what this is, because this is a right-hand drive. And I've got all the main engine relays here. It's a 2 engine relays, there's a throttle relay and the fuel pump relay. So you want to make sure you take that out as well. It will all just come out with the loom anyway, and it's all disconnected down to the A pillar, which went to the dash harness, which we've already removed. And then yeah, it just goes down to the engine computer and through the firewall, which you can just sort of see behind here, which actually is the main loom to the engine. So you want to keep all that intact as well. So I'll show you where it goes through on the engine bay. And yeah, they're the 2 grommets there. One just there, if you can see, and the other one's there. So take all that out, and there's a big 54-pin plug that goes on the engine, just down on the driver's side. And then the other main harness goes to the fuse box, so that actually goes up under the guard. Haven't taken the guard off yet, but it goes up under here. So next job, I'll take the guard off and remove that. So yeah, what we'll do next is we'll plug that dash harness back in and put the cluster back in, and just show you that it's all still working. So now I've got the dash harness just hooked back up again, just at the both A pillars, the body control module under the steering column, and also the dash cluster. But I've just disconnected the dash cluster to show you that it won't start without the dash cluster connected. So I'm there trying to start, does not want to go. So if I plug the dash cluster back in, turn it off, turn it back on, and it starts. So that just proves the immobilization in the cluster. So that's why we need to keep the cluster, or at least have the cluster to copy the codes from to do the immobilizer delete. All right, well that's about it now. I'll yeah, finish taking the main looms out of the car, and then start stripping them to run standalone. Alrighty guys, thought I'd give you one last video before we pull this harness out. So I've removed the front guards and also the engine intake chamber, which sits here, just to give you a bit of a look. So on the driver's side, or the right hand side, we've got this harness here coming through the A pillar, cross up under the guard, and goes to an airbag and also the ABS unit. So there's absolutely nothing in that that's engine related. So you can actually chop this off in the car, and you don't have to get this guard off. I just taken it off just to give you a look. On the other side, this one is good to save, especially if you don't use the interface box, because it's got all the power cables that run to the fuse box, and also the the fan and the air conditioning relay triggers. So it again comes through the A pillar on the passenger side or left hand side, and goes through the grommet and then up over the guard, and then it goes straight into the fuse box. So probably grab that one. And because this one's a 6-cylinder, again out of the fuse box, we've got what they call the front harness. So I've taken this out, but it actually tucks up under the radiator, and we want to grab this plug here, which plugs into the variable fan controller, which is actually mounted on the radiator. So yeah, only on the 6-cylinder. The 4 cylinders do not have this, so you absolutely do not need to grab this front harness at all for a 4-cylinder. If you want the dash and you want the temperature gauge, this ambient air temp sensor was clipped in here. So if you want to use that, grab that as well. Most people won't, but yes, I've taken this off to show you the 2 main grommets that come through the firewall. So this one here is the main engine harness. So it comes down here and it goes into that 54 pin plug. And because this one's a 6-cylinder, it's actually got an extra one as well. Some of the 4 cylinders have got the extra one. So they're the 2 engine plugs. And it's also got the wiring that goes down to the transmission. So this one's auto, so it's got these 2 plugs here. If it was manual, it'll have just the reverse and the neutral switch. And this other grommet here has got a little bit of wiring, and it's this conduit that goes, and it goes up across the top of the firewall. So there's not much engine related wiring in this, but it's got this one here which goes to the starter motor trigger. So we want to grab that. This goes to an optional alarm, which is not on this one. And then it goes to the windscreen wiper motor, which we don't need, and also the brake fluid sensor, which we don't need. But one other component that we do need, which a lot of people chop off, is this right at the end. It goes across here and it goes to the airflow meter. So that's it there. So yeah, don't think that this is just all non-related engine, because the end of the line is your airflow meter, so you actually do want to grab that out. Yeah, so that's it. We're going to pull this whole harness out now, and then we'll lay it out for you on the ground. And just inside, this still starts and drives. So I just drove it on the hoist and back off the hoist. And I had to put the crash bar in here and a steering wheel so that I could steer it. And yeah, so all this harness is all just sitting here, so that'll just come straight out as soon as I get those grommets out. And the harness onto the back is on the left hand side, and we need that just for the fuel pump. So there's the fuel pump controller there, and it's also got wiring that goes down into the fuel tank for the pump. So that's on the left hand side. All the wiring on this side, on the driver's side. On the right hand side, it's just going to lights and doors and whatnot, so we don't need any of that wiring at all. So just on whatever side the fuel pump controller is on, there's some models that's on a different side, so you just have to sort that out. But yeah, the fuel pump controller is only on the turbos and the 6 cylinders, so if you just got a normally aspirated, you don't need to worry about any of the rear harness. Alright, well, we'll start ripping this out and we'll give you a look when it's all out and back on the floor. Okay, so now we've got all the harness out of the 2005 Outback and laid it out back on the floor. So I'll just quickly go through it. So we've got the main body harness here, which is the main one you want to remove. So it goes down to the engine computer, the engine wiring, and through this is behind the air conditioning panel, and then you got the two grommets that went through the firewall. So this one went to the engine plugs, the rear O2 sensors, and also the transmission. And then you've got this one here, which had just a little bit of engine wiring. This one's the air conditioning, had the starter motor trigger. That's the wiper, so don't need any of that. But the one thing to remember is it's got the airflow meter, so you want to take that one out. And then at each A-pillar and front guards, it's got wiring that goes down, and on this side it goes to the fuse box. So it all unplugs out of the fuse box, and then you can just pull it all through. I've got it connected to the front loom still. So this front loom did the radiator fans, all the headlights and whatnot. So you don't need the front loom unless you want to reuse the variable speed fan controller, which is only on the 6-cylinder. So that's that plug there, and yeah, the ambient temp sensor if you want to use that. But other than that, all that wiring is pretty much not needed. And then on the driver's side again, you've just got the wiring for the ABS unit and some airbag. So all the airbags all coloured in yellow. So as I mentioned before, you don't actually need any of this. I just took it out just to show you. So you can actually snip that inside the car. So that's the grommet that went through the A-pillar. So you can snip that there. And so yeah, so that's the main body loom. It's got the pedal plug. It's got the body module here. So on the main loom, which is this one, there's two plugs that go into the body module. And the other plug of the body module, which is this one, is on the dash loom, which I'll come to in a second. And you got the transmission. So I made an error before. I said the transmission was over there, but it's actually this one. So the other one was the air conditioning controller. So sorry about that. But yeah, in a similar spot, but just on the other side of this bulkhead. So yeah, we'll, if you're using the reversed auto transmission, you want to keep that as well. And yeah, so the body loom is this one here. There's not much needed in the body loom apart from the dash cluster plugs if you're using the dash cluster. But we also, if you program the dash delete, it's a good idea to keep the plugs on as well, just in case there's any dramas. And you also use that to program the dash cluster because you need the plugs to power it up. And it plugs into the fuse box, and these ones went to so the driver's door and the rear door, so you don't need any of that. And then on this side it plugged back into the body harness, so that's the body harness here, and that's the instrumentation harness here, or dash harness. And then we've taken the rear loom out as well on the one side because it's got the fuel pump controller, which is right at the back. And we've still got all the fuel pump wiring here, so that plugged in at the A-pillar with this plug. This one went to the door, and that one went to the rear door. And yeah, that's the seat belt switches, and that's the fuel pump wire there. So it's a bit of a pain to get this one out, and you don't really need to get it out. But if you want to reuse the fuel pump controller, even just get, you know, a couple of foot or a meter of cable. So, you know, maybe chop it here, so you can leave some tails and the plug on, and then you can rewire that back into the conversion. Yeah, it's, oh yeah, and yeah, these are important too. They're all the engine related relays, so good to keep them. But if you use the interface box, you actually don't need them, so, but it's easy to take out. So yeah, that's all the components that we need. Only thing I haven't shown is, because it's still on the steering column, is the key antenna. So it's one of these plugs down here. Yeah, there it is. So that plugs into the key antenna. So we need that when the key for the body computer and the dash cluster for the immobilizer. Oh, thanks for watching. We'll start condensing this loom and make it a standalone just for the engine, and yeah, the engine's still in the car, so we'll give it a test run. Alrighty, so now the harness is all done, we've put it back in the car. So it's got our interface box there, it's got the main loom, which goes to the big engine plugs down here. It's a bit hard to see because it's got to put the air box back on. And then there's another wire here that goes back onto the starter, and this cable here goes onto back on the mass airflow sensor, and then there's also the cables that go on the alternator. So we've routed that under the manifold because it's now coming from this loom here. So it used to go to the fuse box and the battery, so now it goes with the bundle here and under the manifold, and yeah, it does the air conditioner and the alternator. So we've also got this is power wire off the battery, and that wire, it goes to the battery supply into the interface box. You can see it's powered up, the ignition's off, so it's got just the immobilizer light flashing on the dash mimic panel. And then we've got the starter motor wires, which are these white and black. And then we've got the power for the radiator fans. So in this case, it's actually the variable speed controller, which is mounted on the radiator. So it's got the main power wires, the blue and white. There's the ground, and then there's just this control wire, which is a red and blue. So yeah, it all goes back into the interface box in this terminal strip here. And then we've also got the fuel pump control, which is this wire here, so it's the power for the fuel pump controller. And it's just sitting here, and the fuel pumps back into the, using the car's fuel pump supply. So the main components, we've got the interface box, the ECU you can see is underneath. Then we've got the body module, so the body module does the immobilizer. So you can see the dash cluster here is also part of the immobilizer system, but we've got that unplugged. So we've copied the immobilizer codes there and put it on our dash delete module, which is on the body module. So yeah, if you don't want to run this cluster, that's all you need is the body module, the dash delete module, and of course the key and barrel. So just put the key permanently on. And then we've got the accelerator pedal. So it's just hooked up to this connector here. There's only about 1 meter here, but on a Volkswagen we'll make that a 5 meter long cable. We've also got these two bundles here. So this is for the dash cluster if you actually want to use that dash cluster. So we're going to sell this engine and loom package, so the end customer might actually want to run the cluster in their conversion. So we've kept that on for now. If you don't want to run the cluster, that can be removed. And this one's actually for the 5-speed auto gearbox shifter, so it does all your tap shift and the lockout solenoid. So we're going to do some testing on that for another project, so we'll just left that on for now. But yeah, so these two can be removed in most cases. Yeah, we'll power it up, and yeah, it's just a simple on-off switch here and a little start button. So you can integrate that to your existing ignition key. So if I turn it on, you'll see all the lights have lit up. So we've got the check engine light, the oil pressure light, the battery light. So we've got the two fan, sub fan and main fan on. They're going to be permanently on as well as a fuel pump. because the relays are permanently on because they use the speed controller, so that's normal. I've got an AC compressor light there, so when the AC is on, that will light up as well. So I've got the key symbol's gone off, which is a good sign. It means the immobilizer's happy for now. And yeah, we'll give it a start. So just press this button.